Hello and welcome back to Cinerecap. Today we're plunging into the pulse-pounding, action-packed thriller movie, Transporter. Be warned, spoilers ahead. Frank, once a Special Forces operative, now works as a driver for hire. Based in southern France, he's dubbed the Transporter, moving cargo for cash. One day, Frank's tasked with driving 3 men from a private bank to a drop-off. Turns out they're bank robbers, but Frank doesn't mind as long as the money's good. He lives by 3 rules: never alter the deal, never ask for names, and never peek inside packages. The robbers demand Frank drive them and their haul, but there's a hitch. There are 4 of them, not 3 as agreed. The boss pulls a gun on Frank, who stands firm. The leader shoots one of his own crew, dumping the body as police sirens close in. Frank finally unleashes his skills. With lightning reflexes, cool-headed precision, and a masterfully planned route, he makes the cops look like amateurs, weaving through streets like a man possessed. One robber feels queasy, and Frank suggests he get some air, noting the leather seats were just polished. They press on, everything on track, until a garbage truck blocks their path. No problem for Frank, he burns rubber, pulling a daring stunt to vault onto a trailer's back at the drop-off. Frank's paid more than promised and offered a job to drive to Avignon, but he declines, citing his first rule. Instead, he heads home, scrubs his car, and swaps the license plates. He's always ready with fake plates for his gigs. He switches the plate number and settles in. At home, he catches news of the robbers' arrest, botched by their reckless driving to Avignon. Local Inspector Tarconi visits Frank, asking about his car, as a black BMW with a plate featuring 0 and 6 was the getaway vehicle. Frank, having swapped plates, plays dumb. Tarconi finds nothing amiss and leaves to check 2 other cars. Frank gets a call from a new client needing his services that night. Frank meets the man, agreeing to deliver a 50-pound package to Darren Betancourt, an American. The client offers $40,000 up front. When Frank asks, the package is loaded into his trunk. The next day, en route to the drop-off with the cargo, Frank stops to fix a punctured tire. Opening the trunk, he spots a person inside but stays calm, fixes the tire, and drives on. Breaking his 3rd rule, Frank unzips the bag and finds a Chinese woman bound and gagged. Offering her water, Frank resumes the trip, but the woman, Lai, bangs on the trunk mid-drive. After removing her gag, she says she needs a bathroom break. Feeling pity, Frank helps her out for relief. Suddenly, Lai bolts, forcing Frank to chase and drag her back. As they head to the car, 2 cops spot them. Frank swiftly knocks out the officers, stashing them in the trunk with the unconscious Lai. After a long haul, Frank reaches the destination and hands the package to Betancourt. When Betancourt probes about the contents, Frank, also known as Lai's driver, insists he didn't look. As Frank prepares to leave, Betancourt offers another job, delivering a briefcase on his way home. Frank accepts, stopping to buy food and drinks for the trunk-bound cops. Tragically, as he returns, his car explodes, the cops inside killed. A bomb in Betancourt's briefcase was meant to silence Frank about the cargo. Fueled by rage, Frank vows vengeance. Frank storms Betancourt's mansion, confronting a swarm of henchmen in a brutal clash. He takes down some with bone-crunching precision, leaving others dead in a whirlwind of fists and gunfire. Escaping, Frank steals a car, only to find Lai bound and gagged in the back. In an old move, he leaves her, still tied in the street. But guilt hits, and he doubles back to retrieve her, moved by her plight. After giving Lai food and a bed for the night, Frank tells her to leave by morning. As Frank sleeps, Lai rifles through his things, discovering he's a highly trained ex-Air Force operative. Seeing his good heart, she digs into who attacked his home. Meanwhile, Betancourt visits a wounded henchman in the hospital. Learning Frank led the assault, he kills his own man to sever ties to his crimes. The next morning, Tarconi arrives at Frank's home as Lai cooks breakfast. Tarconi suspects Frank's link to the dead cops and burned car found nearby. Frank claims he was in the area yesterday and his car was stolen. Tarconi, skeptical, presses him. Suddenly, Lai, posing as Frank's chef and new girlfriend, backs his story. Despite Lai's support, Tarconi finds no proof and leaves. Once Tarconi's gone, Frank, furious, orders Lai out of his house and life. Betancourt and his men unleash a hail of bullets on Frank's home. Frank grabs Lai, dodging gunfire, and gets her to safety. Betancourt then orders his men to launch missiles at them. Frank and Lai narrowly escape the blasts. Reaching an underwater tunnel where Frank stashed diving gear for emergencies, they swim to a nearby safe house. The next day, Inspector Tarconi summons Frank and Lai to the station to discuss the attack on Frank's home. Tarconi grills Frank about his ties to the arsonist. Frank insists he was swimming with Lai during the incident, clueless about the culprit. Tarconi, unconvinced, questions further. Tarconi's called away to meet the police commissioner, cutting the interview short. While Tarconi's desk is empty, Lai hacks his computer, pulling data on Betancourt and sharing it with Frank. Lacking evidence, Tarconi releases them. Thinking Frank's dead, he urges Lai to start anew far from this mess, even suggesting she rebuild her life elsewhere. But Lai drops a bombshell. Betancourt runs a human trafficking ring, holding 400 Chinese captives, including her father and siblings, in containers for sale into slavery. Moved by Lai's story, Frank resolves to free her family. Frank and Lai infiltrate Betancourt's office, where Lai finds documents pinpointing the container with the 400 captives, including her kin. As Frank confronts Betancourt, rifle in hand, Betancourt coolly reveals Lai's father is his partner, complicit in the trafficking. Frank realizes he's been played. Just then, Lai's father's thugs storm in. Amid the chaos, Lai aims a gun at her father, but his threats make her lower it. Betancourt admits only 395 captives remain. Some were taken after his men overpowered Frank. Meanwhile, Tarconi uncovers Betancourt's identity. Rushing to Betancourt's office, he finds Frank unconscious. When Frank wakes, Tarconi demands the full story. Frank explains Betancourt and Lai's father's role in trafficking hundreds of Chinese in containers. Convinced, Tarconi helps Frank escape jail, posing as a hostage to free him, knowing Frank can crack the case faster without red tape. Everything set, Frank tracks Betancourt and his crew to the Marseille docks, where they plan to load the containers onto trucks that night. Despite Frank's stealth, he's spotted, sparking a fierce shootout with Betancourt's henchmen. Frank struggles to board the truck, and Betancourt's men subdue him. Frank faces Betancourt's deadliest fighter, a towering brute, alongside a pack of blade-wielding thugs led by Lai's father's goons. Against staggering odds, Frank unleashes his combat prowess, taking them down in a relentless brawl. Betancourt, unfazed, sends more armed men, forcing Frank to dive into the sea to escape. On shore, Frank commandeers a rusty vehicle to chase the truck. The old car breaks down on a remote road. Exhausted, Frank spots a small plane heading toward a farm and presses on by foot. Armed with the rifle, Frank orders the pilot to fly him near the freeway's container truck. Parachuting onto a moving vehicle, Frank knocks out the driver. Betancourt tries to intervene, but Frank hurls him and 3 henchmen from the truck in a grueling high-speed fight. Seizing control, Frank steers the cargo to safety. But as he steps out, Lai's father pulls a gun, aiming to kill Frank to bury his crimes. Enraged that Lai defied him and sided with the captives, he orders her death. In a desperate move, Lai shoots her father, saving Frank. Inspector Tarconi and the police arrive, rushing to free the container's prisoners. They commend Frank for his heroic rescue. Thanks for watching. Kindly hit the subscribe button for more daily recaps. See you next time.